Welcome into NFL Daily. I am your host, Tom Downey, and on today's video, we're going to take a look at some Senior Bowl winners and losers. This is actually one of my favorite videos to do each and every single year, mostly because it's fun to get to break down some players that, frankly, I haven't really heard of before. That's why we're beginning with Quinn Miners, the interior offensive lineman out of Wisconsin Whitewater. Now, I'm not going to lie to you guys, and this shouldn't come as a surprise, frankly. I haven't watched a second of Wisconsin Whitewater football this year because there are a lot of other players and teams I got to try and focus on here as we're still in late January, I should say. Miners entering this week, talking to people who are smarter than me and know more about this stuff than me, was viewed as kind of a late day 3 type of player. He didn't play football in 2020. D3 football didn't really happen this year, so he sat out all of 2020. He was working with one of those offensive line coaches, Duke Mayweather, who I like a lot, by the way. Impressed so much this week, Quinn Miners did. He's gone from being a late day 3 guy to, he might go top 75. He comes out after his very unusual offseason training worked wonders for him and impressed at guard and center. And what you're hoping for when a smaller school guy comes up and plays against the best competition by a significant margin he's ever faced in his career, you're hoping this guy can hold his own. Miners was frankly outright dominant. He played so well this week during the practices. This is a guy that was not really on anyone's radar at the top and is now, I think he's going to go day 2 or day 3, which is pretty wild to think about there. He broke a bone in his right hand, by the way, in Thursday's practice and was still playing through like it didn't matter. He was a tough-as-nails guy. He has gone from a late day 3 guy to assuming, of course, he impacted himself and helped himself out in the interviews, which I don't really know anything about because it's the interviews, which are all kept private right now. He's going to be a top 75 guy. Remember, it's not just about the games at practice, or for the games. It's also about the practice. We're going to go full Allen Iverson. It's about that. So I think Quinn Miners, the growth he showed this week, going from a not really heard of to being so impressive, helped himself out significantly. And oh, by the way, Miners only got in because Alabama offensive lineman Landon Dickerson got hurt. Talk about taking advantage of your opportunity. Miners has gone from being someone who, maybe he ends up going late day 3 because a guy got hurt. He subs in and helped his draft stock out more than anybody else did this week at the Senior Bowl. All right, Marins was the winner on offense. Richie Grant, I'm going to argue, was the winner this week on defense. And entering this week, a guy that I'd watched a little bit of, I liked him. I'm like, okay, this could end up being a guy who ends up, securing top 75-ish status. I think there's a very real chance that Grant now is going to end up going in, maybe the top 50 status. It's kind of where I think we're at right now with Grant. The safety class in general is fairly muddled. You got, maybe Trevon Merrick ends up being a top 50 pick. I think Richie Grant's also in there, so I think there's a chance he goes in that top 50 category. This is a guy, as I quote Chris Collinsworth, who's able to do a bunch of different things for you. This is someone who is able to play some box safety, but more importantly, is able to play free safety as well. And that's where the value checks in for a guy like Richie Grant. So I think Dallas Cowboys in particular, in the market for his free safety. Richie Grant, they're picking the top 50. If he's there, makes a lot of sense for them. So I thought Marins and Grant, and I think there's no such thing as a consensus in the draft, but close to a consensus, those were your 2 big winners on offense and defense. Now, we're going to get some more, but before we do that, I want you guys to let me know. Who was this year's biggest Senior Bowl winner? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section here. Was it Grant? Was it Marins? Was there someone else you watched on Twitter, or you had access to a lot of the film that was being posted by the Senior Bowl? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. This is the pinned comment on today's video. Let me know your biggest Senior Bowl winner. Let's look at some more winners here. How about D'Wayne Eskridge, the receiver out of Western Michigan? Okay, this is someone we mentioned in our pre-Senior Bowl players to watch discussion. I thought he was pretty good. Now, he's not the biggest guy, 5'9" and some change, under 190. He's an older player as well, but as a dynamic, athletic, basically uncoverable guy, Eskridge had himself a very good showing at this year's Senior Bowl. Again, he's an older prospect. I think he's going to go in the top 100. Corners in general had a very difficult time sticking with him. A lot of the receivers / running backs I thought impressed this week. Now, Demetric Felton, I guess I'll list him as a running back since that's what he played at UCLA. But as we move forward, he's going to be a receiver, I believe, in the NFL. That's the area I think he's going to spend most of his time. Like, that's where I think we're at, and I think that's a good thing in the end for Demetric Felton. Kind of like the inverse of Antonio Gibson, right? Played receiver and running back at UCLA, but at the Senior Bowl, he really impressed as more of just a pure receiver. Lined up outside, had a great touchdown because DJ Daniel just got worked by him in the actual game. But remember, this is not about just the game. These Senior Bowl winners and losers, the practice matters a lot too. And Felton, who did play some just pure receiver at UCLA, was very impressive and very reliable in that category. I don't know where he ends up going. Maybe it's top 100. But a creative coach is going to be like, oh, shoot, we can use him like Tavon Austin. We can use him like Nyheim Hines. He can be a receiver and a back for us. I think he's top 100. I think a creative coach is going to fall in love with him and be like, get me this guy. I'm going to be able to get him the ball in a bunch of different ways, and he's going to make a lot of plays for us. So I like Felton quite a bit. Not going to be a fit for every team, but that flexibility is going to intrigue someone maybe a bit earlier than we expect. Now, do you guys want even more NFL draft videos? If you guys do, I want you to type in me in the comment section. I love the NFL draft so much, I came in on my so-called off day to do this video, so that's why I keep looking down here at my producing computer. If you want more of them, simply put, just type in me. All right, some more winners here. Dez Fitzpatrick, who I don't know if he had the best week of anybody, but it was a pretty strong receiver class. Again, not a great corner class in comparison either. Fitzpatrick's biggest reason why he's a winner, I should say, actually came from the game for him. Now, he had a strong showing overall. Again, another receiver who impressed this week, but I think the area in which he helped himself the most was during the actual game. 11 targets, 6 catches for 90 yards. And that's pretty damn good. And the quarterback play, as we'll get to in the loser side, not the best. Which is fine. It's not, there's no Justin Herbert this year at the Senior Bowl, right? There's no Baker Mayfield this year at the Senior Bowl. I thought he played pretty well. He was able to get open. The quarterbacks trusted him. I think that matters. He was never elite at Louisville. He was always just pretty good, but the production, which again, oftentimes into the quarterback play, was pretty similar from his first year to his last year at Louisville. Speaking of production, that was not Josh Palmer's area at Tennessee. He never put together more than 490 yards in a season. But do you know why he's on my list this week, folks? Do you know why Josh Palmer's in there and like, oh, yeah, this is someone who I was impressed by? He benefited during the week of practice in particular because he finally had better quarterback play. No disrespect intended towards the Tennessee rotating crop of mediocre quarterbacks, which kind of sounds disrespectful, but I think even Volunteers fans would agree with me. Palmer never got great quarterback play. Now he got better quarterback play, and he helped himself out, I believe, in a pretty significant way. Again, it is a very deep, once again, wide receiver draft class. So that's going to be a bit of an issue when it comes to where exactly Palmer ends up going. He held up pretty well going up against Patrick Surtain at Alabama, though. I like him. Maybe he ends up going day 3. I would not be surprised if Palmer actually goes earlier than what Jawan Jennings did last year, also another former Volunteers receiver. I like Palmer quite a bit as a potential sleeper in the 2021 NFL Draft. Now, if you guys just want to chat some more NFL Draft, hit me up on Twitter. I am available at WhatGoingDowney. I will put that link, of course, in the comments and in the description, but it's a pretty, I'd argue, punny handle. Came in on my off day to help you guys out and get this video out for you. So if you want to just chat NFL Draft, hit me up on Twitter. My DMs are open at WhatGoingDowney. Let's talk Cam Sample here, at least just briefly. 7 tackles plus a half sack and a half tackle for loss in the actual game. I thought he fared pretty well overall. I thought this was a promising young player who I hadn't watched any Tulane film yet this year. So this was my first insight into sample. Now I get to watch him a little bit more in depth as we get closer and closer to the NFL draft. Let's talk another defensive lineman here, Osa Odigie Zuwa. And if you go, wait a minute, I know that name. How do I know that name? Well, you're right. His brother, Owa, was a third-round pick a couple of years ago by the New York Football Giants. During the actual game is where I thought Osa was at his most disruptive. I thought he was impactful, he was making plays, and he was able to flash pretty frequently as a disruptive interior presence. Now, in the end, I don't really know where he ends up going. His production wasn't elite necessarily at UCLA. But then again, remember, stats this year are a little bit different because there weren't as many of them to go around in terms of actual games. But I liked what I saw out of Odighizuwa. I think 3 technique, maybe can play some base end for you as well. A bit of a tweener in size, but I think he's going to get a chance in what is a not great interior defensive line class. Let's talk Michael Carter now. As far as I'm concerned, outside of Najee Harris, who of course did play the first week of practice, or first practice, and then just backed out because he was a bit banged up, and also he didn't need to be down there at all. Him going there in general was just a good move by him, just to get some face time with some various coaches. I thought Michael Carter, by a pretty significant margin, was the best back down there this week in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. Not named Najee, right? But fun fact for you guys here, and this is also just speaking to the talent that Michael Carter has, and also just the lack of talent, I think, in the backfield for the most part and how these guys were used. Michael Carter, during the actual game, again, it's not all about the game, but it matters, had more yards than everyone else combined. He had 8 carries for 60 yards. He put up 7.5 yards per carry, which is a lot, and also kind of what he was doing throughout his career at UCLA, especially this past year. Also chipped in, by the way, 2 catches for 15 yards. Michael Carter, I think maybe at some point on day 2, I don't know if it's late round 2 or early to mid round 3, I think he is absolutely going to be one of the first 5 backs drafted. And we can have a great, long, in-depth discussion as to which UNC back is better, Carter or Javonte Williams. Carter's not the biggest guy. He can help you on all 3 downs, though. I am impressed by him. If you're looking for a cheaper-ish back from a money perspective and someone who's going to be able to contribute early and probably be part of a rotation, I think is the best route to go in the NFL. Just draft some guys, don't ever pay them. I think Michael Carter makes a lot of sense for an NFL team in that round 2, round 3 range. Now we're going to dive into my losers here because unfortunately in life, folks, there are both winners and losers, so apologies in advance if I offended your favorite player. But let me know who you think the biggest loser was this week at the Senior Bowl. My first guy up here, not ranked, just in general, Marvin Wilson, who had a pretty decent first day in terms of, winning some reps against the guy we'll actually get to here in just a second. The problem was he had to bail again. And look, Marvin Wilson, I was super impressed by him in 2019. I'm like, oh yeah, this is the guy. This is the guy who's going to be able to make a ton of plays for us. He's going to be he could be a round 1 Derrick Brown type riser. And then 2020 came and he just did not have it. He struggled, plain and simple. And the production was nowhere near as good as you can see in these stats. And then there were issues of, he had the knee issue. That's why he left FSU. And, maybe he was battling that as well early in the season. And now he has another knee issue at the Senior Bowl. There were already concerns entering this week about Marvin Wilson's health of, he was playing through a knee issue, and the knee issue pops up again after he had surgery on it to end his season in 2020. That's concerning. Frankly, he's been banged up every single year of his college football career. I love the upside. I'm still going to be willing to take a gamble on him, but in a year which is already a lot of risk when it comes to college football players because of all these opt-outs, the risk involved with potentially going after a Marvin Wilson, wherever he ends up being taken, is significant, and that does give me concern. And I really want to love the player, but I am unconvinced that this is going to be the type of player that you want to gamble on anything before round 3-ish, maybe even round 4. I want to love Marvin Wilson. I want to believe he can be a disruptive, every down defensive tackle. The risk right now, in part because of the injuries, is significant. That's why he's on my losers list this week. Now, a reminder, if you guys want more NFL draft coverage, go follow me. The link is below at What Going Downey. Go check it out today. And if you just want to give me hate as well for hating on whichever player you're convinced is going to be great, hey, welcome to life in the NFL. I'm wrong plenty too. It's at What Going Downey. Some more losers, another player I feel bad about including on here, Deontay Brown, who he wowed at the weigh-ins, right? 364 pounds. He is a massive human being. The problem is he struggled with speed and quickness all week. Now, the one-on-one reps of Senior Bowl practice do not favor Deontay Brown. That is not an area he's going to wow in unless he's able to get his hands on you, which is easier said than done. He's going against smaller, shiftier guys. It's just not a great matchup for him in general with his strengths and weaknesses. In the game, though, he also struggled. He is going to be a good mauler in the NFL. If you put him in probably at right guard and say, hey, we're going to let you do a lot of run blocking, I think the Lions, with what they're probably going to do on offense, would be a good fit, right? But if you put up against 3 techniques, in pass protection, one-on-one, or if you're not able to help as much as you might otherwise, or if the center can't chip over for whatever reason, I think he's going to have issues against quickness, and that's what we saw this week. So I still like the player. I like all the guys we're talking about here. But the top 50 buzz for Brown, I'm not sure that's still going to be there, as we move forward closer to the NFL draft. Now, the quarterbacks in general this week were not great. And, again, apologies to Jamie Newman here. Ian Book was Ian Book. Sam Ehlinger was Sam Ehlinger. These were the guys we expected them to be. And that was also the case for Jamie Newman. And Newman had, I think, some of the most to win or lose this week at the Senior Bowl, because we haven't seen him play since Wake Forest. He opted out of 2020 when he transferred to Georgia and then bailed. I am sure he got grilled in the interview process by teams as to why. The last time we saw him, though, there were flashes of brilliance of oh man, this guy could end up being so good. He's got all this great upside. He has a cannon for an arm. He's just an impressive player. But there were a lot of lows on film, too, especially when he didn't have Sage Surratt out there. So the Senior Bowl, he comes out, goes 10 for 14. You go, okay, that's actually not too bad. That's pretty solid right there. I think that's reasonable, right? Also had a bad interception, did have a touchdown pass, 4 sacks. And I think that was one of the biggest red flags there, because Newman got sacked more than all the other quarterbacks did combined during the actual game. When that happens, normally a pretty good red flag that, you know what, it's probably not just him, or it's probably not the offensive line, it's probably partially the quarterback too. So Newman in the end ends up being the same guy we saw on tape and film of, God, he's got the arm, he's got the requisite athletic ability, and then some. Is he ever going to develop? I was hoping he would be a little bit better. It looks like the year off didn't really lead to a different quarterback. That's a bit of a red flag for me, as difficult as it is to get significantly better. So you're going to gamble on him for sure. He is definitely going to get drafted, and I would take a flyer on him. I just don't know if it's round 4 I want to do it, or more in the lines of round 5, round 6. The traits are there. It is a very fair question, though, if it's ever going to develop. Let's talk one more loser here, Tuff Borland, who, I like all these guys. Please don't be too offended, people. But I think in reality, Tuff Borland, plain and simple, he just doesn't have the athletic ability and the coverage ability to really have success. I don't think he can do it. I don't think Tuff Borland is going to be able to survive out there in coverage. And I think of the Ohio State linebackers, Warner, Baron Browning, Justin Hilliard, some of those guys helped themselves out pretty good this week, especially Browning, I think, in particular. Hilliard made a nice play in the game, too. I just don't think Borland is the one I would want. Frankly, in terms of the guys out there, he would be the least intriguing option. I don't think he's good enough in coverage, and honestly, I don't know if he's good enough to be drafted. So, Borland, high football IQ from everything I've heard. You want to make him a special teams guy? Sure. Maybe a future coach even from what has been mentioned out there by him. I just don't think you can take and be like, yeah, this is going to be someone that we can use all that much on defense. I just think in the end, he's a little bit too limited.